20. First four, 1932.90. And the duets are 750, 670. And the third of the duets on 2 and 3, the duet 270. 750, 670, 270. 1, 2, 3 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 6.
I was born and bred in Warwick-Nabil, which is about 50 k's north of here. I got involved in greyhound racing by my late uncle Des Heenan, which had a few good dogs. Back in those days, one of them was Wonderwood Lass, and it was trained by Doug Penny and John Smith, I think it was, and they were stalwarts of the club back there. And I actually got my first dog through my uncle. He gave it to us, and I've sort of been dabbling in them ever since. You know, that was probably 35 years ago, I suppose. And now I live in Horsham now, and I've got a local butcher shop here, which I've been in for 28 years in the main street, and I just sort of muck around with the dogs, mainly my own. I breed my own and race them, and just as a hobby sort of thing. I've been lucky over the years. I've had quite a few winners, and I've had one good dog there a few years ago was My Best Law. He won 19 races for us, and 27 seconds and 13 thirds. I know exactly, because he was a real good hard chasing dog.
Heading out race 2, the bingo at Horsham Greyhound Racing Club, grade 5.
We race twilight on a Tuesday night, which means generally our races are between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m, which makes it hard to get a crowd because everyone's still working till sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock. But in terms of crowd numbers, then we don't get a lot, sort of 100, 120 people a week. Our cup meeting, 500 to 600 people generally for our cup meeting in March, but most of the time we just run for the TAB turnover. Our cup's a Group 2 race, and we actually have the highest prize money of the 3 racing codes in Horsham compared to the harness and the gallops. So our cup's going to be worth, I think, $56,000 next year prize money. So it's not insignificant money. The Greyhounds tonight generally racing for about $1,100 to $1,200 if they win the race tonight. We have a heats on tonight to go into a final, which will be about $1,400 to the winner next week. We also have the option of topping up, so to speak, prize money, so the club can put in extra money for special events. And generally they're memorial races for life members, or we have the President's Cup coming up soon, that's $3,500 to the winner, so the prize money is pretty good. We've recently had one of our long-serving employees retire. He's been with the club 38 years as the starter, and that's the only position he's held. So greyhound racing tends to be an industry where once you're involved, you just love it so much that you stick with it. So a lot of our employees have been here 10, 15, 20 years. We've got quite a few life members of the club that have been here a long time, long-serving, volunteer a lot of time. So it seems to be that greyhound racing is a sort of a family thing. Everyone's sort of drawn, and once you're in, you're in.
Heading out race 1. First today, the first heat of the Bob Leader, Higher Vacava, Graham Glass, Bad Sam, Mick Maguire, Don't Bother Me, Kevin Isles, Black Arrant, Peter Simone, Dirty Prince, Peter Grills, Mr. Mojito, Norm McCulloch, Infinite Life, Darren Brown, More Lightning, Kevin Mugger. Runners on their way to the start, first of the day. Favourite here, number 6, Mr. Mojito, at 2.50 in race 1. They're going to the start, race 1.
We're here because I've had a race named after me, or they told me a race, but it turned out that they had 5 heats of the races, so we've got a final next week, and we will be back tomorrow next week to watch the final, and the wife's given a trophy. The trophy was named after me because I'd done the 38 years. Well, it'll be 40, as I said, when I finished, you know, so, and the wife wanted to give a trophy, so. The sport as a whole has improved, the amenities and all that to what it was originally with the new boxes. They're all now electric start, whereas when I used to have to jump on the fronts and wait and put them down all the time and all that, that was when it was hard work. And then started them by hand, but then they changed the boxing system to push button, and that's why I kept on as long as I did. I thought, well, if I can do the work pushing the lids down, I can just sit there and push a button. We had 4 children. All 4 children worked here, the 2 boys, 2 girls. And the girl's got a greyhound called Kelly's Progress. Well, they got her because she was a very weak, poor thing out at the Roy Craggs out at Kalkee, and he didn't want a racer, and they were getting fit and playing netball and all this, and they wanted something to get them out of the house. And he said, well, why don't you take the puppy and take that? And they took the puppy. It turned out to be got a fit. And then they said to me, because I was working down there, they said, you'll have to get a trainer's licence, Dad, because we're on a racer. And so that's how we raced her. And we raced her, and she won 8 races for them. And it's always exciting coming down because of the different people you meet and the trainers and all that, and they're all nice sort of people. And it makes a change every week to come out and meet somebody you don't normally meet around the streets in the town.
I work for Radio Sport National in Melbourne and Sky Channel, and do the calling here at Horsham amongst other tracks here in Victoria. It's a cliche, but it's the only thing I ever wanted to do, and I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, and perseverance and knocking on some doors and driving people mad, and I just happened to land in the right spot and got the job. I don't know whether I could do it again now, but 27 or 28 years ago when I got the job, it was something worth fighting for, so yeah. I live in Tardeep, and I can just explain to you what my working week is. I come here on a Tuesday, which is about 580 kilometre round trip, leave home about midday, home about 10 o'clock. Wednesday I go to the Meadows, which is in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, and I leave home at about 10:30, home about 4 o'clock, so that's a good day for me. Good day for me little 3-year-old boy who loves seeing me come home. Thursdays I work in Melbourne as well at Sandown on a Thursday night. I leave home about 4 o'clock and home about 11:30. And Saturday I go to Warrnambool, and that's a almost as big a trip as this one. I leave home about 2:30 in the afternoon and home about midnight. So I've got 2 very close to the city and 2 very large trips. Today's a 560 kilometre round trip, and Warrnambool on a Saturday is about 500 probably. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture of days and nights. The races we call the dog races, obviously they're not scripted, so anything can happen in a race. So you've got to be prepared to bargain for the unexpected, I suppose would be the best way to describe it. So yeah, there's a few different things you've got to have, but one thing you've got to stay calm and keep talking. Doesn't matter if you're talking shit, just keep talking. Yeah.
It'll be 3, 1 and 5. Here's Rob for the third.
Righto, Greg, thank you at the start. Perfect weather conditions here for this 10-race program, and runners at the boxes for one of the most open betting races of the day. And they're moving up. Last of them in, green lights on, and the bunny rolling, set to go. Ready now, race 3. Set, racing. Ocean Magic only fair to begin. Political Thief won the start, joined by Fawn Surfer. Now coming from the outside is Ring King, and going around it would have been Talira. Back in midfield is Turkish Delight, getting a little way back as Ocean Magic. In the straight, Fawn Surfer set up a good break. Race clear to Ring King, followed by Turkish Delight. Then Talira, Fawn Surfer clear up the straight, and Fawn Surfer comes clear to win by 4 over Ring King. Third in is Turkish Delight, followed by Talira. Back behind runners Sing Sing, Ocean Magic, followed by Bob's Hot As. Number 5, the winner, Fawn Surfer. 5 first, 7 is second, Ring King. It is all clear. Okay to play, it's all clear. Race 3 at Horsham. Race 4, heat 3 of the Bob Leader. Reserves out 8 to run. The trip again 410 metres. Race 4 at 5:04.
I have a veterinary practice here in Horsham, and as part of the services that we provide, one of those is to the club here in my role as the official vet. I'm from New South Wales originally, yeah, and it wasn't until I came to Horsham that I became involved with greyhounds, and we're talking 30 plus years ago, so I've been around here for a while. Like any field, each area has its own skills, and as you may have seen at kennelling time, we're assessing the dog to see if it's fit to race, whether it has an injury or whether it's unwell from some illness. And obviously the welfare of the animal comes into play there. And then there are requirements also pre-race, as they each come out for each race. We then have to check them again, put any tapings that are required on the dog, And then if there's a problem during the race, like an animal doesn't perform as perhaps it should have, the stewards then ask the vet to check that dog to see if there's some reason for that lack of performance, if you like. We also do swabs, which have to be fairly specific as to procedure, because if there's a hiccup anywhere, that can make the whole test void, so it has to be very accurate. I don't have a racing greyhound myself, but I really appreciate the dogs themselves. They're real athletes, and the way they come out of the starting boxes, they really explode, and just the way they jostle for position down the straight. And because they don't have anyone on their back or behind them steering them, the dogs themselves have to make the decision as to how they're going to run the race. I mean, they're on their own for, say, 30 seconds, if that, sometimes. And if they're behind another dog that may be holding them up, they have to decide, do I go on the inside? Do I go on the outside? Or sometimes, unfortunately, do I go over the top? And there's a bit of a fall when that happens. But so, they are true athletes. These dogs put everything they have into it, and they just seem to love it. Well, apart from the dogs, there's also the personal interaction with the trainers and the handlers, and I've been here quite a few years, obviously, and I've got to know a lot of them, and we can have a bit of a chat as they're bringing the animals in and taking them out, and so that's good to have. Most of the trainers appreciate the work we do. I mean, we're all in it together. The stewards have their job to do, I have a job to do, the kennel attendants, and as you've seen out on the track, everyone's got their specific jobs, and it works pretty well most of the time.
When greyhound racing first started in Horsham in 1973, lots of local people had greyhounds, but it was mainly just local people racing dogs here, and we raced on a Monday night. And unfortunately the local trainers has waned somewhat, but we still would have 10 or a dozen local trainers, but the professionals come from all over Victoria, South Australia and New South Wales to race here. I started off racing greyhounds with my partner in 1975. He was training the greyhounds, and he then took on a business that he was unable to early mornings and late nights, so I decided to have a go at it. So I started training the dogs in 1975 and been involved in them ever since, and joined the committee in 1984 and have held vice president for about 20 years and then made the step up to president last year. Originally greyhound racing was very male dominated, and back in probably the 1970s, the late 1970s, there was not many women involved. It was the men were the handlers, the men were on the committees. It was very, very male dominated. At our club in 1977 we had Sylvia Penny, one of our wonderful life members, join the committee, and at that stage, because it was so male dominated, one of the male committee members actually resigned from the club because a woman was going to be on the committee. He did come back later and apologise and say that Sylvia was doing a wonderful job. As I said, it's turned around probably in the 80s. It started to become more female, with females handling greyhounds, being on committees. Also at our top level at Greyhound Racing Victoria, we had Jan Wilson was our chairman of the board for 10 years, and there's administration people in charge of other clubs in Victoria that are women, so it is becoming very, the women are starting to take over now. The thing I look forward to about coming down here on a Tuesday night is the people. The greyhound fraternity are a wonderful people. Everyone's very friendly, everyone helps each other out, and it's just the thrill of the greyhound racing as well. It's after all these years, I still get a buzz at watching them come down this home straight.
Totally to Did You Make Your Money? Absent shot up to the turn, about 3 in front with Chaz running on strongly, and they've broken clean out of Sailor's Gully. Absent shot in front, Chaz coming down the centre. He's trying to pick the leader up, but Absent shot going strongly.